Turn to Josh Lederman now, foreign policy reporter for the Associated Press. Josh, a really sort of dizzying turn for this administration. They did a 180 on Syria, and they say it's really all based on this video from this chemical attack.
That's right, Shep. And, you know, Secretary Tillerson came out in Mar-a-Lago today and made a really interesting point. He said, this is not an indication that our posture in Syria has changed, that our future military activity there is different than it was the day before. But, of course, that's not how this works. It's inescapable to avoid the fact that today the U.S. deepened its involvement in Syria's civil war very substantially by going after Assad's forces, something that the U.S. has not done throughout the civil war, and by proxy, Russia and Iran, which both have military assets on the ground in Syria helping Assad. And here's one of the reasons that Secretary Tillerson is really trying to communicate that this doesn't change anything. You have U.S.-backed rebels on the ground who are both interested in ousting the Islamic State group in Syria, but also ousting Assad. They have been begging the U.S. for more commitment, for more air cover, for lethal weaponry, and for other assistance, including U.S. troops there, to help them turn the tide against Assad. So far, the U.S. has been reluctant to take a lot of those steps, and now you're going to see, as a result of this, increased hopes and expectations among U.S.-backed rebels in Syria. So you see the Secretary of State and other Trump administration officials trying to downplay expectations for a potential increase in the long term in the U.S. involvement in this Syria civil war.
Do we know the degree to which the possible ramifications of this, any possible explanation might have been game planned? I meant escalation, not explanation.
We just know that the U.S. is trying to say that this is a one-off, that this is a response to a specific incident, this chemical weapons attack, and that barring any future action from President Assad to use chemical weapons, nobody should necessarily expect that the U.S. is going to continue with more strikes. Of course, the U.S. is leaving open all of its options to take further action, but a lot of emphasis here that this is a proportional response to a troubling incident that violated UN resolutions and other international laws, and that it should be seen in that context and not as far as a broader ramp-up of the U.S. military involvement.
Do you have reporting on responses from the Russians or any indication of how they're handling this?
So far, we haven't seen any interaction between the Russians and the U.S. Responding to this. We do know that Syrian state television tonight has been calling this essentially a provocation by the U.S. and also saying that there were losses. We don't know if that means that there were Syrian personnel who were lost or if they're referring to the U.S. aircraft and other physical assets, Syrian aircraft and assets that the U.S. says were damaged by this strike. And we're also seeing other countries now start to respond, including some Western allies that are throwing some support behind this. A lot of members of Congress also weighing in to support this. But so far, silence from Moscow.
Josh Lederman. Good to talk to you, Josh. Thank you.